I'm no one else. This human birth is very temporarily. And sometimes it's very interesting to just look at myself and like, this body, well, it's just very short and strange that I have it. But there are 4 qualities that are called like godlike qualities that are helping us to become a godlike person. And the first one is
Life can be overwhelming at times. I highly recommend refractive healing as a method to come alongside and support you in your journey. Refractive healing is a unique technique that channels rainbow light energy through your energy body. I benefited from its support when going through some physical and emotional challenges. Now it's your turn. Book your free distant healing session with Jamie today at refractivehealing.com. Thank you to Refractive Healing for partnering with me in this video. I'm here today with Kat, and she is going to share her spiritual experiences with us. She has a degree in clinical psychology. She is a former Buddhist nun. Thank you for joining me, Kat.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
Me too. We could start out by hearing about your earliest spiritual experience.
I was born in Soviet Union, in the area in the world where I guess spirituality was known at that time. Religion was kind of forbidden. And like many kids, I think I had some kind of connection with other world. But because it was not accepted commonly in the mind of people who were around me, like my mom and my dad, I had difficulties falling asleep. When I was at 5, I always cried and I was very, very scared. And I had to call my mom all the time from other room. And she was at some point very loving, but you had your patience only so far. So she would get frustrated with me. And I think at that point, I had to close that connection. And this was the first time when I started to think about death, about dying. I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I would just lay down in a grave, in a coffin? Because I think I killed part of myself at that moment in order to comply with the common reality. Later on, when I was about to become a teenager, I remember in school, our teacher told us that we were talking about tables and that we see it as a solid, but actually it is full of emptiness because of molecules and atoms. And like 99% of the table is actually emptiness. And I was thinking, my goodness, if my eyes tell me lies like this, how much of the reality is actually not what they say to us or what I see? And at that point, I became extremely suicidal. I just wanted to die. And this is where I think I had my pre-birth memories. I was thinking, I called it the abyss. I had no language for that, but I remember feeling darkness around me and pure bright light in front of me. I was feeling so wonderful and calm. My body had no weight. I had just full acceptance. There was no worry, nothing to, I don't know, take care of, nothing to in the future, nothing in the past. You're just there. And for me, it's just emptiness. Nothing. No people, no beings, no other guides, nothing. Just complete silence and emptiness. And it's filled with joy, acceptance, and love. And I remember I was sitting there outside with my friends, and they were chatting, sometimes doing bad things like drinking. And I was 12 at that time. I started having bad life at that moment. And I was just, I want to come back to the abyss. I just want to be there. I just want to be out of this place, I guess. At one point, someone told me about the book by Carlos Castaneda. And many people say that he's just, it's a fiction. I don't really care about that, but I know that reading his books changed my life. And I was just 13 or 14, I read the book for the first time, a little bit, just a piece. And I was like, this is so good, but I'm too young for that. I need to come back to that later. At the same time, like the age 13, 14, I got my first yoga book. I started to meditate alone, and I just did it alone. No one was around me prompting to that, you know. No one around me was meditating at that time specifically. Luckily, with God's will, because of karma, because of universe, I don't know who exactly helped me. Um, my parents were very caring and loving, but at the age of 14, I moved out to another country. There was no bad thing happen. It just needed to be happened. I don't know what happened. So I was living in Russia at that time, and my life changed because no parents told me right now that I have to go to school because I was a very bad student. I didn't want to study. I would tell my parents that I'm going to school. And actually, I would go outside, skip the school, and think about life. And like, I don't understand why I have to learn that this triangle is equal to that triangle if I don't understand the meaning of life. It's like those people around me, they don't understand the meaning of life. Why should I study from them? So I would just skip school like that when I was with my parents. And when I moved out, I was thinking, well, right now it's time for me to get serious. And I became the best student in my class. And again, someone told me about Castaneda books, and I started to learn more. And this was the first time when I understand I was 16 at that time. Now I realize spiritual life is the only life that I want to live. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do in my life. If I'm going to work, if I'm going to have a husband, if I want to do anything, it just should be connected with the spiritual life. And this is for the first time I realized that I'm not going to kill myself. So I was suicidal from the age of 12 to 16, I guess. And I never spoke about it with anyone. At that time, I decided that I need to understand how my mind works. So I wanted to go to become a psychologist, not because I wanted to help others. I needed to understand how this mind works. There is a lot of things there. I had a distinct understanding that I think I knew something. I think maybe we as people, we knew something, but we forgot. And I need to come back. I need to figure out how. I need to figure out what to do with this. And I spent 7 years in psychology. And after almost becoming someone who would have a psychological practice, I met with a lot of people, psychologists, and I realized I don't want to do that. At that time, I was already no aware of yoga, tai chi, qigong, Eastern philosophy. It was like, this makes a little bit more sense to me. So I completely gave up psychology, even though I was invited to come on, you will have PhD with us. We will help you to go and have your doctorate degree. Everything said. I was like, no, thank you. I need to understand how the mind works. I'm not interested in just words because this world is full of words. And I became a teacher of yoga, qigong, meditation. And this is the first time, again, I was alone in my room meditating. I was not Christian at that time, I guess, but I experienced such an amazing feeling of yellow light coming from outside, full of love, care, presence, that I thought, oh my goodness, I saw God. I don't know why I thought that I saw God because, again, I'm a very skeptical person, actually, even though I'm very spiritual, but still skeptical. And I realized, well, if that's so good in meditation, I really need to study more. And I went to visit a Buddhist monk in Russia, in St. Petersburg. We have a wonderful Thai monk. His name is Ajahn Chitri. And it was 6 days meditation. At some point, he left us, and I think he forgot, maybe intentionally, about us. He said, we will meditate for 1 hour, but we actually meditated like 1 hour and a half or 2. And I just remember people around me feeling comfortable and moved, and I was just completely blissed out. I was like, this is so good. I like to do that. And I understand, well, if it's so good over here and he's talking about his teacher in Thailand, I need to learn that more. So I started to go to Thailand and learn meditation over there and practice more united. I was teaching Tai Chi Chuang, I was learning meditation. At the same time, my teacher in Russia, my martial art teacher, was very Christian and was very convincing. So I decided, okay, maybe there is something in Christianity. But I did not want to do just Christianity. My family originally is old believers.
Okay.
It's something like Amish or Mennonites,
Yeah, I
but
know
in,
what you're
in
talking
Russia.
about. Yeah.
Right. So my family, they escaped, Tsar, ran to Siberia, and my mom is from Siberia. They were hiding in the woods and practicing that. So I become Christian very, very seriously. I would do that. I would go to the church 3 times a week sometimes, and wearing the scarf and long skirt like they used to do. And again, I was trying to find the connection everywhere. I would practice, and because of yoga, a lot of Hindu tradition. And I would travel to India, I would travel to East Asia, many things. I would try to understand things, but nothing really would make sense because people are great, people are nice, but I look at them and I don't see them understanding the world. And I'm there, like, knowing nothing. So I was very, very, very lost. At some point, I was renting a place for teaching with a Reiki master. And again, being skeptical, I was like, what are they doing? I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. And he invited me to have a session. I was like, okay, I can do that. I don't like people touching me at all, but I'm like, I can do that and prove to myself that this is just a joke. It's not serious. So I was laying down there and maybe 6 people around me were trying to heal me or do things around me. And I was like, does nothing. And I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, okay, I'm doing good. It does nothing to me. And when they finished, I was very happy. Like nothing happened. Maybe they don't know anything. And at that time, he asked me to just sit in the middle. I guess I was relaxed because I thought it's finished. All of them, 6 people, gather around me and they started to say good words about me, like, oh, you came back home. I love you very much. Let me give you something good. Let me give you a cookie. I don't know what exactly happened to me. I am a person who controls my emotions. I couldn't listen to them. I put hands over my ears and I started to scream, I hate you. I hate you. And all of them were like, I guess, flabbergasted, shocked and step aside. Later, the Reiki master started to do something that I didn't really know at first what he was doing, but I had a vision. I'm in a cave, in a dark cave, alone, very pleasant, nice cave. And there is a light in front of me. And I'm kind of prompted to go out into this light. And there's a place where all people live. They have fun, they enjoy each other, they work, they have families. And I feel like I can't really go there because I'm not I'm not good enough. I'm not allowed. I need to stay here. And this is when I saw Master Reiki doing this to me. I don't know how much he really saw that vision, but he was helping me to get out of, I guess, my mental cave. That was interesting experience that will make sense a little later. The more I did yoga, the more I taught Ili Chang. It's part of Chinese martial arts. The more people, spiritual people I saw around me, less I was convinced that anything makes sense. I was not interested in having husband. I was not interested in having a good work. I was not interested in anything. And the spiritual world slowly made less and less sense to me because I didn't see the example, I guess, around me. So I went to see my martial art teacher in America. When I was Christian, by the way, I wanted to become a Christian nun. But my Christian father, he said it's not a very good idea. And I told myself, well, maybe I'm young. I'm 22, 23. Maybe when I become 30, I'll think about it again. So that year I was 30. I didn't think about it at all. I forgot. And I went to visit my martial art teacher, and he said, all of us, we will go to have a workshop in this Buddhist monastery in Midwest, in Missouri State. I went there and I couldn't stop crying. We would have a meditation session together and I would just cry all the time and I don't know what to do. At the same time, it was solar eclipse. Everyone went out to enjoy. They were cheerful, taking photos. I was sitting in the mausoleum among the ashes, reminding myself, you're not dead yet. Why are you crying? When you're dead, this life is over. Can you stop crying? Right? It didn't work. So next time during the meditation, I realized what I need to do. I went to the monk, to the abbot, Master Juru, his name, and I just silently bowed down to him. And he's like, oh, okay, very good. Nothing more. I just bowed and I stopped crying, right? Later on, he came over to me and said, well, I heard that you would like to move from Russia to America. I said, well, it would be good. And he's like, I can help you, but you need to become a nun. I said, okay. He's like, I guess he was expecting me to think, to hesitate, to say no. But at that moment, I realized, my goodness, I'm 30. It meant to happen. And more than that, I knew about that. I mean, something told me when I was 22 that my time will come. I became a nun, but not in America because I could not move to America directly. I went to Taiwan, didn't know Chinese language, was living in a kind of rural area when no one speak English among nuns. And first 9 months, it was even worse because I thought this is my last chance to find meaning, to find sense, to make it work. And maybe that's a surprise for people, but monks are people. Even the fact that they have bald heads and different type of clothes, but not every one of them is a realized person. And I would go to every meditation or chanting session. I would just cry there again because I didn't know what to do. Nothing made sense. And at some point, I listened to one nun that kind of, I think, well, she maybe knows something. I was telling her that I don't know how to live in this world. It's so full of suffering. It's so bad, so awful. People are crying, dying every moment. People are tortured. People are killed. Like, what's the point? I don't understand. What are we doing here? And she's like, yeah, the world is full of suffering. Can you open your heart to that? And I'm like, oh, so I don't have to fight with that? I don't have to be like disagreeing with that. I actually have to accept that. It was an interesting concept. And she told me, you need to be brave enough. Feel your feelings. Even though I was doing meditation for how many years, I was aware of that. But I guess that was the time for me to actually accept my own suffering and the suffering of the world. It was easy for me. Just I don't know. I felt like I could stretch my hand and I would touch the ocean of suffering of the people around me, and it's just very depressing for me even right now, you know. And I decided to just stay in the room. For me, I'm very connected to the darkness when it's dark. Then I see the light. Then I see the I don't know, the purity. So I closed the curtain. It was not dark enough, so I hid in the wardrobe, or how do you call that place? I was trying to meditate there, to feel my suffering, to allow myself to actually like, this is pain. This is pain. And I would repeat words that make me feel even more pain. It was difficult to breathe in that place. So I went out and I started to just roll on the floor out of the pain. It was so, I don't know, it felt like I had no skin in my chest. And it's just so depressing, bad. And at some point, I reached the bottom of my suffering. And there was nothing. There was nothing there. I was very surprised. I was like, "Oh, this is what you do?" So you just need to go in, even though we all heard that. How many times, the way out is in. But it was very surprising. So I was like, "But what do I look? Where is the suffering?" "Oh, confusion. Right now my mind is full of confusion, confusion, confusion." Huh, and again, emptiness. It was a wonderful experience for me to understand and accept my feelings. Now, for example, it's a little bit maybe not really connected to that, but unfortunately, my cat passed away last week. He was
I'm so
killed by,
sorry.
thank you, killed by a car. And before, I would always feel if there's a kind of unpleasant emotion that I need to overcome it, that I need to do something about it. Like I remember my sister had problems with anger. And when she was angry, my mom would tell her, just calm down. And it never makes sense because she would just get more angry. In the same way, we're taught whatever kid is experiencing unpleasant feeling, oh, just distract him with a candy. Oh, just look there in the movie. We never taught to look at our own feelings. And when I mentioned that my cat passed away, I did felt sadness. Sometimes when I would be reminded of him, I would cry, but I was completely fine with that. I didn't have difficulties. First moment after the shock, the news, I would just keep telling myself, "Oh, pain for the cat, pain for the cat, pain for the cat. Oh, sadness, sadness, sadness." And I would just constantly be there, and it would not bother me. Once I would get distracted and think about something else, then it became difficult. So I would bring myself back again and repeat, "Oh, just pain, just pain, just pain," and it will go away. Interesting, if I want to make it go away, it wouldn't go away, right? So it's just the accepting. And after spending 2 years in Taiwan, I moved to America, and I was planning to keep being a nun forever, but I always, I guess, had a connection to some kind of voice that I don't hear it as a voice, but I don't know how to actually explain that because I guess I close myself so much that I don't really hear it, but I know sometimes I would ask myself, what should I do? This or that? And even if I don't like the decision that is coming to me, I know that this is what I have to do. So I told myself, I'm a nun. It's completely pleasant life right now for me. I started to enjoy. It was all of my pain was gone. I was, I don't know, flying, honestly, really enjoying my nun experience. But I knew that if conditions change, I just have to follow. And someone started to live at the monastery with a lot of mental difficulties, a lot of also suffering, very connected, I guess, to what I was experiencing. And I really wanted to help that person because I realized that all the suffering is connected to our conditions. We have a story in our trauma, childhood trauma, that makes us feel the same thing again and again. And if we want to be free from all kind of unpleasant things, we have to unravel and like unpack this trauma from within. And while trying to help that person, I met with a survivor of horrific child abuse. Her name is Annika Lucas. And
Yes, I know her.
right. And I had a private session with her where she's talking about unconditioning model. And it's also very connected to Buddhist teachings. She would explain things that when we are born, we receive lies from people. In a sense that if my mom was just busy at work, I would receive it as a lie that I'm not good enough for my mom's attention, right? And with her, I just remember myself being 5 years old. And I knew that people around me are like robots. Something is wrong with them. And I wanted to never become a robot like them. And I was very lively kid. And I was like stretching my hands to my parents. And they were just regular people who are busy with their life. And it felt like their eyes are dead. All my life, I wanted to meet someone who would be caring and accepting and whose eyes were full of love. And with that work with her, with unconditioning, I met that person, and that person was me. I myself, by unconditioning myself from trauma, by taking over this and over that I am worthy, that I am good, that I deserve to be loved, that I'm not a sinful creature that is so bad that the God will punish it. I had a vision with her, an extremely vision that I'm in the pool of the body of water, the kind of milky color, and me as a child and me as an adult were just united. I finally, with all my years of experience of being a psychologist, with being a Christian, with being a Buddhist, with being a yoga teacher, with doing all kind of things, I finally was able to pack what was kind of wrong with me. Nothing was wrong with me. The strangest thing is that we people come here and we have this, I guess, in this world of duality, we receive this information that, I don't know, we're not good enough, we don't deserve this and this and that. And yeah, at that point, I realized that I don't need to be a nun to practice spirituality. I just need to be a human being. I was finally content. I was finally happy. I was finally full of love and joy to myself that it's so difficult for me to not to share it with someone. And there was a decision for me to leave the monastery. I met my fiance at the same time when I decided that for me to be happy, I don't need anyone. And like exactly next week, someone told me that I love you the way you are. And I was like, that's very interesting. All my life, I thought maybe I don't know what exactly needs to happen to people to have love, but I don't deserve to have love, I guess. And at the point when I realized for me to be happy, I don't need love. This is when I received the most pure love that I could just possibly imagine. And I still was a little afraid to leave because people over there, monks and nuns, they are very kind, generous. And I didn't want to, it's like stab them in the back. I don't know. It was very difficult for me to leave. And at some point, I was just going with my fiance, walking around a little village in Chicago. And I said, well, he's dead. I'm not saying who, but let's say my Buddhist practice is dead. And when I said that, I saw a person with a, how do you call it? Scythe?
The scythe? Yeah.
Scythe. And I was looking at my friend. Do you actually see that? Or is just a death over there? And he said, yeah, I see that. And he was a completely regular person in the middle of Chicago having this scythe in exactly the moment when I said that this practice is dead. I guess that was a sign for me to leave. I have to accept that this is time for me to change to a different mode of life. And yes, right now I do my best to help people with my psychological knowledge, even though I'm not licensed as a psychologist here in the US. But I do help people to uncover those things that cover their true nature. I realized at that moment when I was united with my child self and my adult self that my true nature is just light. It's just purity. It's just care. And we just cover it with the conditioning through the life. And we all can get rid of that. And this is what I'm trying to do right now. Yes, this is my spiritual experience.
Kat, thank you so much for sharing. I so enjoyed hearing your journey. You've had quite, I mean, from being a psychologist to being a Buddhist nun to your Christian background. I mean, it just seems like you've had such a rich experience of life and of spirituality, even. So, in your intro message to me, you mentioned that you found commonalities between the different religious practices that you had
Mm,
done. Could you share with us what some of those commonalities are that caused you to end up disrobing?
when I was young, I noticed that when people hear song for the first time, folk song, they believe that this is the right version. When they heard a version from another place, they're like, "Well, this is wrong. I know the right version." And it's somehow I see it from that moment everywhere, and even in religion. When I was leaving Christianity, it was because only we know the truth. Only we're right when the rest are going to hell. And even though in Buddhism, it is people are talking about like understanding, acceptance, no judgment, but that's an ideal. In reality, no, again, only we are right. The rest do not know what they're doing. And right now, I do think that everyone has their own path, everyone has their own mission. And like, for example, my fiance is a musician, right? I do not play music, but maybe for him, how many kids when they're teenagers, music is just the place to escape suffering. Just they can listening to some kind of song can change their whole life. So maybe just being a simple, not a simple musician can be a gift. You can change the world with that. So you don't have to judge anyone what they're doing, I guess. That's for me. Everyone has their own path. Who wants to be Buddhist, they can be Buddhist. Who wants to be Christian, they want to be Christian. Even myself, when I became a Buddhist nun, I didn't want to identify myself as Buddhist. I was like, I'm just investigating because there's no reason for me to put myself in any kind of box. It's just too tight. When you close yourself in, you actually close everyone to come in too, right? Well, you just put everything over here, you're getting rid of others. So your experience becomes very small. So that is a commonality, I guess, that you can say that we're the right ones and the rest are wrong. And yeah.
So, when you were young and you saw this light that you called the abyss, was that your pre-birth memory or is that something that happened as a young child?
I later on when I was talking with Annika Lucas, we were diving into that a little more, and she's like, "Well, did you had a near death experience?" I said, "No, I didn't have, because yeah." And she said, "But it sounds very, very much like everyone's experiencing a near death experience." And this is when we kind of dive deeper, I guess, in that feeling, and I realized that it was my pre-birth memory. I think maybe because I do not remember too far. I'm a very skeptical person, and I kept telling people, even when I was a Buddhist, they would ask me, "So do you believe in past lives?" I would tell them, "When I remember, I will tell you. Right now, I don't remember, so I don't know." But I think this pre-birth memory is when I think my mom was pregnant. I don't think it predates that. It was she had her dad passed away when she was pregnant. And I think for me, I do have the resonance when people are suffering, and I can right now, absorb that suffering and see the light, see the purity, see the meaning in that. So I think that was given to me in that moment when my mom was pregnant. This is my very short pre-birth memory.
Yeah, I relate to that too because my pre-birth memory is of the light. And
Mhm.
most of the time when people share pre-birth memories, at least the stories that I've heard, it's more of maybe a pre-life planning memory or
Mhm.
like something that happened in between lives on another planet. But I just remember the light
Yeah.
mostly. And so
Yeah,
I relate to that. I relate to what you said about just wanting to go back to it, and you just spend your whole life trying to figure out, "How can I get back to that?" Because it
right.
felt so blissful.
That's
So
true.
my question to you is, in your search through different religious paths and everything that you've done in your life, have you found a way to connect with that feeling or with that light again in this world?
Yeah, sure. Right now, for me to just sit in meditation and I would feel blissed out like almost immediately. And blissed out experience in Buddhist meditation, there are levels, right? And it's just kind of not very advanced, actually. There are still levels where even that blissful experience can disappear. There is more and more. And for me to just to see a light is just, you close your eyes and you see the light. And this is because I think I was able to uncover those layers of condition and understand that my true nature is just pure being of light. That's it. I'm no one else. This human birth is very temporarily, and sometimes it's very interesting to just look at myself and like, this body, well, it's just very short and strange that I have it, but I'm very connected to that feeling of I don't have enough words for that. It's just it is. It's just there. And this physical body is just very, very short. And I know sometimes for people it might be difficult, painful, but if we kind of go a little zoom out and we see more than this life, now it feels like this is short. It's not so painful. It's just unpleasant. It's just inconvenience. But when we are connected to that feeling of light, it's not so difficult, I guess, to experience even the horrific nature of the world around us, just bringing, the conflicts and with all the wars and stuff like that that is happening around us. The connection with your true nature makes it a little easier to go through that.
Absolutely. One thing I really love about your story is that, if I understand you correctly, you sort of started off like seeking this spiritual connection. And as time went on, it almost sort of switched, like flipped around, and you began to understand that the real spiritual connection is here in the human life with all of its ups and downs. Is that correct?
That is correct. And two things happened around me to make me realize that. First, before I was very skeptical of all those near death experiences. I was just like, those people are just fantasizing. Whatever it's like we're going to sleep. Sometimes we have whatever happened through the day. This is what we see, right? So if someone's religious, they will see Jesus. It's like, this is what my understanding of that was before. But once I heard this horrific story of child abuse that's happening around the world, and those people don't have a reason to lie. And they say that they survived that just because they had help, just because when they would die physically, they experienced something else. And I started to watch your show and shows of others. I think I watched, you have no idea how many of your videos I watched, a lot. It makes sense. Some of the people who are your guests would share that they can be at the same time many people when they're in that being of light. And this is what I'm doing when I watch other people, they're experiencing their experience. I become them. I become their experience. The shows like yours is such a great gift for us right now. It's helping us to overcome the material world and the understanding the connection between material and spiritual. Yes, we're here and there is meaning in that. The This is one thing that helped me to understand something about this physical world. Another thing is my fiance. He's bringing me back to the fact that we're just you're a human being and this is wonderful. And I was never okay with that. Never okay. when I was especially was a child, I my skin was so sensitive. I didn't want to be, I guess, a human being. When you come back from that feeling of being blessed and happy, you don't have to feel even the weight of your body. It's so unpleasant to be here. So I was rejecting whatever it could be connected to the human experience. I was rejecting it. But once you're here, in order to be able to connect back to spirituality, we need to accept our human nature. So I'm just right now, I'm like, okay, it's not that I am human forever. I have this human experience. Isn't that wonderful? I don't have to cancel it. I don't have to, I don't know, stop eating. There are right different type of practices, which I did also. I just can't fully accept this physical world. And this is how I transcend it. I don't have to fight with it. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to tell it that it's wrong. It's here. Let me accept it. Let me enjoy it. And this is the way to transcend.
Thank you so much for sharing that. One final question I have for you. You've talked a little bit about accepting suffering, and there's so much suffering in the world right now that I would say probably any normal empathetic person would become very quickly overwhelmed just by thinking about a few of the things that are happening in the news, let alone taking on the suffering of the whole world. Do you have any advice for people on how to deal with that overwhelming amount of pain and suffering that we're experiencing in the world today?
So I would, I guess, use a little bit of Buddhist theory for that. There are four qualities that are called like godlike qualities that are helping us to become a godlike person. And the first one is loving kindness, directed to everyone. When we accept our own self, when we accept other people, this is one. Second one is compassion. When you're able to take in the suffering, your own suffering. When we learn to meditate, well, it's painful to sit sometimes. And when we learn to accept, oh, my body has physical pain, this is a little bit, right? Then we can take more, oh, mental suffering. Can I just be accepting with that? Can I just look at that and be present with suffering, with my pain? Then we can expand it. Oh, other people are suffering. It doesn't mean that I don't care. Let me fully experience that. Sometimes, when especially Russia just invaded Ukraine, I would make myself watch dead bodies. You know, stories of old abandoned, like abandoned ladies. You know, they would just, you could see that the pain. The grandma is there, so lost. Her house is gone. Her husband is gone, and I would allow myself to take in the suffering and just be present with that. Right now, at this moment, how many people are suffering? How many, someone is raped, someone is abused, someone is tortured, and we cannot close our eyes to that. So I teach myself to be accepting in the sense that it's there. If I don't agree, it's still there. The next is sympathetic joy directed to all the good things that's happening around us. Right now, someone is saved, someone is helped, life transformed, people are laughing. There is so much joy that we also cannot ignore. And we shouldn't be, I don't know, envious. Like it doesn't really matter. The suffering is important. This human life is both. We have both suffering and this joy, all of that together. And when we're able to have these three, the equanimity comes. The ability to see the waves in the ocean, but be beyond them, underneath. There is no wavering. It's part of this human experience. Yes, it's difficult sometimes. Yes, but I love one person. I think maybe it was on your show. I don't exactly remember. I'm sorry. They said the justice is in the healing. Once we overcome that, there are so many gifts with that. There's so much wisdom that is not given for those who did not go, I guess, through the pain and suffering. So the advice would be to learn to accept small sufferings and just to be with them. It's just unpleasant. Well, it's hot. Can I just observe being hot? I don't have to immediately change it. I don't have to turn the air conditioning. And then we can expand, expand, expand. And the fact that we're accepting it doesn't mean that we're agreeing with that, right? Because the best way to find peace is stop fighting. So sometimes, the people are trying to go to demonstration for peace, and they just bring more fear, more hatred, more anger. The way to peace is just to understand, to accept, to be open. And this is where there are no condition to fight. There are no condition to war, no condition to conflicts.
Kat, thank you so much for sharing. I've so enjoyed this conversation. Would you like to share with the viewers where they can find you?
I don't have much presence online, but we can maybe have a link to my email. And if you're interested, especially those like teenagers who are very connected to suffering, to being upset, to being sad, if you're interested to overcome the conditioning that makes you suffer, I would be very willing to help to talk with you about that. That's my, I guess, dedication, because through the suffering, we can experience so much joy when we understand them.
All right. I will put your email in the description. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and comment with your thoughts and opinions. And check the description box for the links to my TikTok and Instagram, where I share the more personal side of my life, my website, where I share my paintings and merch, and also the Be a Guest link for anybody who's interested in sharing their story. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.